The thing is, like, we overcomplicate everything. And the sessions that I do with people, 99.99% of the time, the answer is within someone. So if something's not working in their business, or they feel confused about something, it's like the answer is always there. It's just creating the space and like calming the mind down enough for it to drop. And sometimes you have to have a conversation with somebody else for them to like kind of be the mirror for you.
Hey, I'm Joe Fier, and welcome to the Hustle and Flowchart podcast. This is where we talk all about building businesses so they give you the freedom and fuel for your life. I'm not here to help you build $1 billion business, but I am here to help you create a business with systems that work for you so you can make more money than you need just by working part-time. You know, I was a chronic hustle mode kind of guy, and I want to share my experiences and mentors I've met along the way to help you reframe things to be the most effective as an entrepreneur. I wish I had this guidance and insight when I was younger, so that's what I'm doing here for you. Please share and enjoy. Hey, what's happening? You know it. We all know it. 2023 is almost gone. Poof. 2024 is coming around the corner, but we still have Q4 to make the most of it. So that's why the new HubSpot Sales Hub is here to help you and your team. And it's pretty epic. So this thing helps you along the whole customer journey. It ties everybody on your team together, your workflows, your operations, making sure no one's missing anything so you can deliver a better experience, a thing to your customers, but also get more revenue for your business. Let's close out the year strong. This is going to help you do it. So they also have a new conversational AI-powered platform called ChatSpot. This thing is going to help you basically be your assistant to craft emails, different copy that you want to write, outline posts, and so many other ways and things that would take up hours of your time. Well, times have changed. You don't have to do that anymore. This thing also has 1,400 integrations, which I'm sure it's going to work in your business. So tons of features, ways to get creative in how to use this. So right now, at the end of this year, we want to make sure that you're making the most of it. So go make the switch to HubSpot Sales Hub over at hubspot.com/sales. Molly, we're going. We're here together, and I'm happy our mutual buddy Dan Ryan, you're planted in his studio right now, but I'm happy you connected us. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And thanks to Dan for connecting us and for this beautiful, not at all my vibe background that I have going on right now.
I like it. I think it could be your vibe. You know, you get the guitar over there, you got all the amps. No,
Yeah, like a lot of masculine behind me. I'm like the feminine balancing all this out.
Get the skateboard back there. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
You're in a fun spot. So yeah, our Dan, I know you always like us chatting about you, but yeah, got to give you a shout out because he connected the two of us. I mean, anybody that Dan brings in the room is good vibes, no drama. You know, there's a lot of these no red flags, all that fun stuff. You know, Dan's rules have permeated into my life and my wife too. She's partnered with him on a business. So yeah, I'm happy to explore your world and like how do you get to know Dan? I'm actually kind of curious. Like, I saw you're both from Boston.
We're both from Boston, yeah. We've just kept in touch over the years. So he actually hired me as a coach, maybe like 2015 or something. It was like a while back. He was working with a health coach, and the health coach was like, you got to work with this guy on some like, you know, mindset, like, you know, body emotion stuff. And I was like, cool. And I really don't work with a ton of men, but Dan's like a witch. Like he's so psychic. And I was like, all right, I gotta take this one on. Yeah. I gotta explore this one here. I gotta work with him.
It's true. So I just got to give some Dan love there. Yeah, because he's always kind of, he's in the DNA of this podcast for so long now. So that's always cool to hear. A little Dan story there. If you don't know Dan, well, you gotta. But let's talk about you, like, because you from Boston and corporate background, and the way that Dan introduced me, I don't have the Slack in front of me, but essentially it was like, hey, Molly's got this really cool way to show the woo-woo side to business owners and practical and make it a tangible thing that you can apply. And I've been nerding out on some of your podcast episodes, and I don't know, I think they're geared to women, but I'm like, you know what, I'm vibing with it. I like it. And there was like this business chakra episode that I really liked. And I was like,
Thank you.
whoa, I've never heard that like brought from colors and, the whole chakra thing to how to apply it in business and like what might be holding you up in business from doing your best work and you're being your best self. So yeah, give me a little bit of
Yeah.
scoop of you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think we're entering this new era energetically where it's about balance, and that's something that you talk a lot about, and it's like a balance of the masculine and feminine, and it's not like either or, like oh I'm woo or I'm not. It's like we collectively have been ignoring like superpowers that we have inside of us that support us, and we've been relying so much on the mind, which is a beautiful tool, but it's like I'm sure everyone's heard the statistic, the majority of our thoughts are repetitive and they're based in the past. And so like when we're just relying on that, it's a harder, it's an uphill battle some days. If you're like sitting at your desk trying to like think about something, that's not really where the magic happens. But then you take a break and you're eating lunch, or you're in the shower, or you're out for a walk, and like that's when the insight drops in. And inspiration is connected to intuition, and it's this side of ourselves that we're not used to using, we're not used to relying on. It's kind of like this like mystery thing, like, am I intuitive? Am I not? How do I access it? And it's like overcomplicating something that is actually pretty easy once you give it space.
Well, what I guess how would you describe it? Because I'm sure everyone has a different way of being intuitive, or maybe they just haven't even thought about how they can be.
That's a good question, because I do think it's different for everybody. And there are some tools that can like help give you some clues, like human design. They'll give you the gates, like which intuitive gates do you have. And for me personally, it was just listening to what I knew to be true. So my body speaks to me a lot, and that's nothing new. Like Eckhart Tolle talks about that in his book, The Power of Now. Like if you're gonna trust your body over your mind, because that's a higher vibration. Your body's not lying to you. Your mind can get confused and deceived and like hooked in with the ego. Yeah. So for me, I went through kind of a crazy IVF journey, and then I had my daughter, and I was realizing I can't go through the cycles of burnout that I used to go through. Like in my corporate career, I'd like work too hard, burn myself out. Take all weekend to recover, or longer. And then the cycle would start again. And it's like, I can't go through that, because I don't want to miss this time with my daughter, first of all. And so it's a commitment. Like I committed. I was like, I don't know what this thing inside of my stomach is, but like, I know that when I listen to it, things are easier for me. And it's more accurate than what my mind thinks often.
Yeah. So it's like slowing down enough to actually tap in and sense something different, right?
Yes, completely. Like giving it space, and then also understanding that like what our intuition tells us is often very different than what our mind tells us. And we're like baby deer at first. Like we're used to trusting what we can see. Like the mind believes in the seen, the analysis, the data. And intuition is like the unseen. It's the unknown, the uncertain, and that like freaks our minds out. So it takes courage at first to actually listen to this thing inside of you that you can't see, and you don't really have the evidence yet that it's going to lead you to the right space. So it's kind of like trial and error. Yeah. And having the willpower to be like, okay, mind, I hear you. I know you're trying to protect me here and guide me to where you think is best, but I'm just going to like listen to this thing that I'm feeling inside of me.
Yeah.
And see where this leads me. And having the strength to just trust that and follow that and give that space until you really build a trusting relationship with it. That's kind of like the gateway to really, I believe, like living and working differently.
It is a different way of being. And I feel like this year for me has been a focus on intuition. And I'm in this guy group. I've talked about it before, but like we have these everyday check-ins, morning and evening, and then there's like micro habits we do every day. And the whole thing is to be conscious and aware of what we're doing every day and building good habits, all that fun stuff. But intuition was the thing that was like the piece of feedback that I received, and that I knew that I was like doing much of, like, I guess a play on this word, the hustle and flowchart. I was doing much of the hustle, too much hustle in the last handful of years, and definitely was feeling the burnout pushing physically and mentally in ways that, and not listening to my intuition, my gut. And because it's almost like everything heightens, like energy heightens when you're pushing with your mind so much, at least for me, where it, like, you feel it in your body, but you're like, F that, or, you know, you're not really like thinking about it. You're like, I got to keep pushing. I have a mission, or I have this vision, whatever it is, and I got to fulfill it my way, or like the way that I plan and put it on paper. That's how it's got to go, whatever, you know. And that's how I was finding myself in this, like, not a good cycle of
The hustle
ignoring intuition.
cycles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like there's like in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with hustle energy, right? But when you're constantly in that mode, that's our bodies are not designed for that. Our minds are actually not designed for that. So it's not like saying all of a sudden like, oh, hustle's a bad thing. It's not. It's just where's the right use of it, you know?
Yeah, and you even talked about it's like a balance, right? Like, like obviously the tool between our ears is pretty valuable. You know, like we can use our brain in a lot of great ways, but. Yeah.
No, 1,000,000%. I mean, I was talking about this yesterday in masterclass. It's like our minds are such a beautiful, amazing tool. It's like we're at a point where we can learn how to use them differently. So if we know, for example, a lot of the women that I work with, they're starting a business, and it's like starting a business in and of itself isn't a problem. Like your business might solve problems for people, or you might experience little problems as you're starting or growing your business, but in and of itself, creating a business is a creative process that involves your mind, but it's not a problem to be solved. And the mind loves solving problems. It loves data and analysis. And so when you're asking questions like, will I succeed? Will this work? Am I good enough? Like, that's not a great use of the mind, of like that masculine energy. Like nobody knows at that point if you'll succeed, but allowing thoughts like that is going to lead you down the path of imposter syndrome and all the other things that probably will block you or delay you or other things that is the exact opposite of what you want to experience.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Well, you mentioned masculine, feminine energy, and I've had some folks in the past talk about that, but like, I guess define that and put those into terms that we can kind of grasp, you know, like tangibly, I guess, and keep it in mind. Like, there's a women in I was going to say women and children, not so much children, but women and men are both listening to this. So it's not just men or whatever, but everybody has those energies. I know, you know, it's just a different makeup for all of us and how we implement them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just an energy when we're talking about masculine or feminine, like you said, it's just an energy.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, we've been coming out of this era of what I would say is like an imbalance of the masculine. So forcing, pushing, all of those things were kind of like rewarded. Those were the trophies. Like, the harder something is, the more noble it is. And it's like, really? I mean, there are times when, like hard work feels amazing and it's going to get you somewhere. And then it crosses over to like struggle, where you're recreating patterns of struggle because you think that's a noble thing. So that's like an imbalance of the masculine. And I think now is an invitation for people like you're doing to step up into using their intuition, which is another gift, in balance with the mind. So the mind is more of that masculine energy and intuition's more of the feminine energy. So there's a lot of different definitions, but in the context of what I do, that's the masculine and feminine balance that I talk about. Like, when is the right opportunity to use which energy, and bringing mindfulness to it instead of, because the opposite can happen where you're in feminine imbalance, where you're just sitting on your meditation pillow and getting nothing done. So,
it's sleeping in, it's getting too comfortable in times, or taking far too many naps.
Yeah, totally. And like, there's a time and a place for that. Like, if you're super pregnant or whatever, like that's the right time to like, just chill and not really like do anything. But it's like, what is the circumstance calling for, and what's the right use of energy at that moment in time? So that's kind of how I view the masculine feminine in terms of applying it to life and work. Busyness, like that's another one that's like an imbalance on the masculine side, the opposite of what we were just talking about, of like too much relaxation.
Interesting.
Exactly.
So, and this is, I feel like all of us, there's patterns that show up pretty consistently in everyone, but like, are we tuned in to ourselves, right? To like see what we're doing, or I don't know, like, what are some tools or ways to catch yourself or maybe even track, it's like data, It's like looking at the data. Okay, how do we analyze what we're doing maybe naturally right now, and knowing that it's probably not the most optimized way for us to be or work, and then so we can refine what we're doing.
One thing is just like tuning into your breath, which I know sounds a little cliche, but like when you're in balance, there's like a natural breath that's happening. And when we're in over busyness or busyness too frequently, it's like we feel that energy of constriction happening in our body, and that can show up in our breath too. But even if you just like tune in, it's like, what do you feel expansiveness as you take a breath, or do you feel constriction? Like that's just one little indicator of like where you're at and what you might need
Yeah.
in that moment. So that's the most immediate thing that comes to mind. And then, of course, there's like, when you get into imbalance, what are the behaviors and are those starting up? Like, are you having trouble falling asleep? Is your mind racing more? Did you start slacking on the meditation practice? Like, what are the little red flags that you inevitably know if you follow that path, it's going to lead to full blown being out of alignment 10
Yeah,
steps later?
like little hints, right? Like
Yeah,
that are leading
exactly.
you. Yeah. That's
Exactly.
that's cool. I love the breath part because yeah, it's breath can tell you a lot. It's yeah, it seems kind of cliche because it's used a lot now. Breath
Right.
work, do the box breathing, whatever. But yeah, really, just like with what you said, is it constricting or is it more relaxed and expansive? Like, is it a deep, wide breath or is it just like chest breath? And
Totally.
yeah,
And like our bodies are giving us biofeedback all the time. So one way that I know that something's aligned for me is my body naturally will take a big breath on its own, like a relief sort of breath almost. And that's one way that my intuition connects with me through my body is like, oh, when I notice that breath happen, it's not something that I'm consciously taking a deep breath. Like my body takes that breath for me. I'm like, oh, damn, okay. All
I
right, we
gotta
got
I gotta
alignment
chill out
here.
or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's like a dog. Like I'm just thinking of, I have a couple dogs here. It's like, yeah, whenever they do a big yawn or, if there's a lot of energy in a room, like I have a almost 4 year old. I think you have a 4 year old.
I have
And
a fear.
yeah, it's like there's a lot of energy with toddlers or, just three-nagers or whatever you want to call them. It's,
Yeah. Oh, it's real.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and I could see the dogs, especially there's like, it's almost like the
Uh-huh.
same thing. They're trying to offload some of that busyness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yawning is something that happens like a lot when I'm in sessions with people because that's just how our body will move energy. So like your dogs are doing, it's like just moving that energy, creating flow. Like it's our
Hmm.
body's way of doing that, especially if there's been constriction in our body right before that. Like if we're like pushing through the situation or whatever, and it's like the breath gets shorter and it gets more in our
Yeah,
chest and like
for
get a
sure.
reset.
Oh yeah, yeah. Are there any I just think of like there's all these like tools that can help us remind us now. It's like we all have that, like there's Apple Watches. Like I like to use the, I don't know, the little buzzing feature on there sometimes to track my breath or at least like keep me in a rhythm. And I feel like when I do that more often, or listen to something, it's like, okay, that'll help me remind myself. It was really helpful. I know, like, as I was coming from this tightness of like the last year or two to like the beginning of this year is like a lot more of like releasing that. I would have to have these reminders and things
Yeah.
to catch myself. So are there any tools or things like the breath is one of them, but like do you track or like to get some of this data back? Because I know there's like HRV that you can.
I'm like kind of all natural with it, but I know
Yeah.
that there are amazing tools. Like the only thing I wear is a CGM, which helps me
What's
understand
that?
what's going on in my body. It's a continuous blood glucose monitoring device. And that will, if I'm having a moment of super stress, that can spike your glucose. So that is something that, like I'm connected with. I kind of rebel a little bit personally. This is me personally against the technology because like I'm like, I just want to rely on my body and maybe it's the Boston in me. I'm like, I got this, I can do this. But I think tools like that, the technology is amazing, especially as a bridge. Like, first of all, if you're someone that loves to see like the data of what's happening within you, then rock on. Like, use the tools, use the system, use the device because it's going to give you information. And like, that's kind of the evidence that the mind wants to see. And so
Hmm.
if that's the evidence that you need to keep going on your journey of this, then that's amazing. Some people, it might be like a bridge to get there. I know some health coaches, they're using all sorts of cool stuff. I wish I could be more helpful there. I just kind of like do it
I think no, what you
organically.
described, it's like a bridge, and that's how I
Yeah.
think I've used it as well. Is when you're transitioning from like one way of being to another. It's like sometimes we need some crutches or that visual mental piece, like the data. So I feel
Oh
like that's
yeah. I mean,
cerebral. It's like I'm doing the right thing,
I'm doing
it's
it. I
working.
used to be like so rigid about tracking my meditation, like the minutes and like how long and every day. And it would be like, God forbid if I was like about to miss the day, I'd break the streak. And like
Right,
that at a point in time was really important to me, you know? And then at a point in time, it was like, I'm going to meditate today. I'm not going to use this device and it's going to break the streak because like I needed to get out of that masculine energy that I was forcing onto this like balance practice that I was creating. It's now I don't really do that, but at a point in time, it made me feel really accomplished to look down and see like, okay, I meditated for 100 days today, 100 days in a row. And, so like,
yeah.
I don't think there's right or wrong. I think it's like, what do you need right now at the phase that you're in and like use it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to put it, and that's what I would recommend as well, based off of my own experience. Like,
Yeah.
it's good to track, and you want to see, and obviously, it's like consistency is the biggest piece I would imagine to shift from this like imbalance from masculine to feminine energy. It's a spectrum anyway, so it's you're always kind of playing with that balance or harmony between the two sides. So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And then like the bonus is then you start seeing some of the benefits of it. So over time it becomes like more of a joyful thing that you're doing, like
mm,
you really sink into, I'm just using the meditation practice as an example, but like the creative insights start flowing, like a whole new world opens up to you and then you need to focus less on like the method of what you're doing and like then it just becomes something that you look forward to.
yeah, yeah. So what talking to entrepreneurs, like the folks listening right here, and I think those are primarily the people you work with anyway, is like how so we talk a lot about, like the energies. I think it's pretty clear now. It's like it's tied, masculine is a lot more cerebral, mental, and then you have the intuition is more of a body thing, which is more feminine. How can we apply that into our businesses? Because like I mentioned the whole chakra episode, which I,
Yeah.
I recommend people to maybe you could shout that out. I think it's episode 7. I actually have it up right here.
Oh, look, you know more than me. Thanks, Joe.
Got that? Yeah, unlocking business chakra magic is what it's
Yeah.
called.
Yes.
Yeah, like tell me about how we can kind of apply this stuff to maybe some common things that entrepreneurs deal with, or ways that you coach people that are kind of going through this awakening, let's call it.
The thing is, like, we overcomplicate everything. And the sessions that I do with people, 99.99% of the time, the answer is within someone. So if they're like, something's not working in their business or they feel confused about something, it's like the answer is always there. It's just creating the space and like calming the mind down enough for it to drop. And sometimes you have to have a conversation with somebody else for them to like kind of be the mirror for you. So if you have, like you mentioned, you have the guys that you're in your group with and they're kind of like mirrors for you, because we've been trained and praised to like go to the mind to create the solution. And I'm not crapping on the mind. Like we said, the mind is awesome. That's how we bring things into the physical 3D, the inspiration, we move it into the 3D with the mind. But creating that space to just allow the thing to emerge, it's so easy that it feels strange because we're used to like making it a hard situation. I
With the
don't know if
mind,
that's,
yeah, it's like
yeah.
forcing it, right?
Yeah, because we're forcing it. And like, if you can trust yourself in the process enough to just stop and walk away and allow the insight to drop through,
Yeah.
boom, like it'll happen for you. I think the other thing is when there's this seeming like block, when things are just like not moving or you're like just not seeing the result that you want, most times there's something inside of you that you've been ignoring, like a little whisper, a little insight, a little something that you're meant to explore. So maybe it's a new product or service in your business. Maybe it's just a creative outlet that has really nothing to do with what you're offering right now in your like bread and butter situation. And literally every time I ask that question, someone will be like, well, yeah, there's this like book that I've been thinking of writing or like whatever. And the second they engage in that, not as a way to make money at that point, but just to get that sacral chakra moving, the creative juices moving, it's like everything starts flowing in the business. Because it's just opening up an energy of creative abilities, of insights, of things to come through. And maybe that thing that you're exploring will turn into something, or maybe it's just the avenue to, how do I want to say it? Expanding your consciousness to be able to get to the next thing in your business. So when we think like, oh, we're blocked in our business, we need to focus on our business. Sometimes not at all. Sometimes it's like, go take the karate class or like the thing that's inside of you. And I feel like, not to sound too out there, but like the universe is really harping on this right now with us. Like we're in the era of the whole person. So when you're overly focused on the work thing, I feel like that's when the blocks become more evident now in this energy pattern that we're in. So it's like, what are you ignoring in your life outside of that? And when we create flow as like the whole person, things start moving.
Wait, so what does that mean that we're in the era of the whole person? Go deeper on that. I'm interested.
There's like been different energetic eras over time, and we just started a new one last year. And so this one is like about the balance of the masculine and feminine, and that's like the whole person focus. So when there's like we just talked about like the hustle and flow, like there's a time where you're going to be hustling in your business, and then there's a time where you just create flow in your life. And when you're overly hooked on the hustle nonstop, it's like, hi, you're out of balance. So things are going to hit you faster right now. It's the Aquarian age that we're in. And so I won't get into all that, the backstory, but basically like it's an energy of balance that we're in right now universally. And so the more that we can create that balance in our life, in our business, and not just overly focus on our work self, the easier we create flow with all things in our world.
This has come through in other discussions I've had here as it relates to technology and AI and just the speed of innovation right now across the board for like every industry in every way. It's integrating quicker. And I've had a few people say it's like, well, it's a perfect time to figure out what are your superpowers? Like what really lights you up? And this is probably more the intuitive side of all of us. It's like sitting and realizing like, what's that thing, like a book or looking at the guitar behind you, it's music, you know, it's like, that's an expression, but it's like, what is that thing that is maybe not the push energy that we've been doing to further ourselves or our careers, but it's like, what's the other side of us and really uncovering that.
It's an interesting kind of dichotomy we're in because energetically we're entering a phase that's all about originality and authenticity. And like when you think of AI, that feels the complete opposite to that. So it's like, how do you use that in a way that enables your authenticity and originality to shine through? So if you're someone that's just like ripping stuff off the internet using AI that way, like, okay. But there are like genuine ways you can use it that would help productivity. I mean, so many things, like more people see who you are when it's like plugged in. So again, it's like that balance between the two, like staying original and authentic to you and letting that shine through as you're integrating tools that could possibly create the opposite situation.
Totally. Yeah. And because it could open up a lot of time for us as well when you use these tools in a smart way. It's like, well, wait, are you going to work more? Are you going to keep pushing, even though like there's solutions now that are smarter than all of us combined in certain regards, not with everything. But it's like, okay, so what are we going to do with the other part of ourselves that is honestly kind of opening up because of technology and a lot of other factors like you mentioned?
Totally. So then you have that space really to connect with self and to create joy and to explore other things in your life that bring you joy aside from work.
Yeah, ideally, right? Big announcement here. The Hustle and Flowchart podcast is now the newest podcast on the HubSpot podcast network. They're the audio destination for business professionals. It's exactly why I joined the network, to expand what we've been doing here. making business the fuel for your life, not the stressor or the burnout. We want to build fun and make business a big part of who we are and our expression out to others. So you're going to expect a lot more curated guests and that sync up with this mission. Also, more topics and episodes from me. And I want you to keep listening to the Hustle and Flowchart podcast. Go check out other shows on the HubSpot Podcast Network at hubspot.com/podcast network. Are you tired of the hassle of building online sales funnels? You know, I get it. And you started your business for freedom and not to be chained to your laptop all day long. And thankfully, there is an all-in-one platform that makes this process super easy so you can start attracting customers online. It's a tool called Kartra, and it has every tool you need to grow. So every Kartra account comes stocked with a bunch of done-for-you campaigns that are designed, connected, and written for you. All you got to do is customize them to your liking, and you can launch a fully built sales funnel in minutes. So make marketing easy on yourself. Visit www.hustleandflowchart.com/Kartra and snag a free 30-day trial of Kartra. And again, that's hustleandflowchart.com/KARTRA. So you mentioned the chakras, and this is something from your episode I thought was cool. It was like block party. You know, it's like you have these like blockages. You mentioned blockages of a chakra. Yeah, and like I'm sure, I don't know, maybe if like you want to quickly walk us through, 'cause I feel like that's, I was going to say rooted, but it's one of the chakras, obviously. But like I guess why chakras? Like, what's that all about? And these, because you mentioned blockages, because those relate, and these chakras will relate to specific things that we can do in our lives, businesses. So I guess walk us through like the dummies version, if you can.
Yeah,
and then we
of
can
course.
pick apart some of them.
So, I mean, I work with energy. That's what I love and that's what I trust. And, you know, any spiritual teacher will tell you this. I'm sure you've read or listened. Like the mind in like is the densest form. So like our thoughts are the lowest vibration. Our emotions are higher vibration. And then our presence or energy or intuition are the highest vibration, because that's connected to dimensions that we can't see that are the highest vibration, right? So I like working with chakras because they're energy systems and centers. And so, you know, if we look at like the root chakra, yes, that connects with physical parts of our bodies. It connects with emotional aspects of our lives. And you can also overlay that with business. So, you know, root chakra is like your business plan and mission statement, different things. And so I like to tap into energy when people are feeling blocks in their business, because it's a genuine pathway to shifting. So like if we're experiencing fear or doubt or things that happen when no matter where you're at in your business, if you're like up leveling to the next thing, or all of a sudden you have some new running buddies that you feel like, oh my God, they're a little bit above me. Like, am I worthy of being in this space? Like, it's going to continue to happen in our career if you're growing. And so that one, for example, could trigger imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is connected to the solar plexus chakra, which is our power center. So with fears, with anything, like we can say like, oh man, like screw this, I'm just going to fake it till I make it. Well, that's resistance actually. And that's like wrestling with the energy that we're trying to avoid. And so we can wrestle with it, and we're going to have moments of like, yeah, I can do this. No, I can't. And it's like, we're just like in that ping pong back and forth. So why would we do that when we can tap into a different energy, which is like, maybe we're going to our heart chakra, which is like, I freaking love what I do. And you know what, even if I'm the most junior person in this room, I can tap into that energy so authentically and just connect from that space. People are energy. Like this is all proven now by science. Like you walk into a room, you get a vibe. So if you're stuck in this war in your solar plexus chakra of like, I'm worthy of being here. No, I'm not. It's like people feel that energy. Oof, there's something that feels a little off about that person. Then you're up here in your heart center, which is like a little more vulnerable, heart-centered. Like you're like, wow, that person's awesome. Like new to this group, but I love that they're passionate about what they do. Like you feel the connection. Does that make sense?
Totally does. Yeah, it's a vibe. And yeah, we're always rating that vibe wherever we're going.
Yeah, exactly. And so like the chakras, I'm like, let's not wrestle with like the pig in the mud of whatever we're feeling. Like there's so many different energy centers that we can connect with to genuinely be connected with our higher self and connect with people through that energy instead of forcing something, which is like
Yeah.
an imbalanced energy.
Yeah. So like when thinking about all these energy centers, the chakras, like are there specific ones that you'd recommend folks to focus on? I mean, I'm sure they're all different for everybody, right? Like what's your process there to
Yeah, I
identify and
mean,
maybe
they're all different for everybody, but I think it's like accepting the phases that you're at and flexing from there. So if you're someone who's like first starting out your business, your root chakra is going to be jacked up because you don't really have your foundation built out yet. So if you're forcing like to try to have it all figured out and everything else, then it's like that wrestle energy is happening. And so I would invite you to move up to like the sacral chakra, which is like passion, joy. Like, what do you love about what you're doing right now, about what you want to build? Or even moving up to a higher energy center of like, how's this going to impact the world when this happens? If you're an established entrepreneur, then your root chakra is pretty much worked out there. You should be settled there. So maybe you're more of a visionary of like, what's the next thing? Like you're in that crown chakra, like what's the next thing I can do that's going to like change the world and like impact the field that I'm in and really send some waves through this industry.
yeah, because I'm sure it changes, yeah, as you progress through your career, your business, these different chakras will probably light up depending on, I guess, however we're pushing. It's that balance of the energies again, right? Like the intuition in our mind.
Absolutely. And I think like collectively though, it's we're in a space of allowing more joy with things. So the trophy used to be how big is the struggle? That's how big the trophy is. And like we're realizing like that isn't always the way. There's points where it's going to be a struggle and you're going to need to, collect some of that willpower in your solar plexus and get it done. But that's not like the way we need to operate 24/7. And so I think collectively, all of us, like, how do we tap into the joy of what we're doing more as we're going about doing it
Yeah.
and using that as a meter to a degree?
Yeah, it's definitely a shift for a lot of folks. It's like that hustle culture. Got to get it done, or got to bust this thing open. It's up to me, not looking for help or looking outside of us doing the thing. I know.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to have that. Us as entrepreneurs, I know it's like a lot of creation, so we're always wanting to optimize and do better of whatever we're doing. But it's at least for me and a lot of the folks that I've chatted with here, it's like, oh, that whole rest and relax, the pause, the taking a moment to actually assess or open the frame up a little wider and see what is it that I'm actually doing here, like in my day to day, but also like widening that even further out to what's where am I even going with this business and where I'm putting all this energy. Maybe there's a different pivot or something.
Right, absolutely. And, for some people, like looking 5 years ahead really lights them up. And like for other people, they don't need to. They can be following the energy day by day. That's how they're designed. We're all designed differently. And so I think it's like allowing ourselves to be comfortable with what works for you, even if it hasn't been seen that way historically. Like it's okay to experience joy in what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's okay to
Trust.
hustle today and not tomorrow. Like what works for you and how can you give yourself permission to do it even if everyone around you is doing it differently and might look at you a little bit funny.
There you go. Yeah, that social pressure, that definitely is a thing for a lot of folks, especially when they're trying to show up and be everywhere and, whole
Yeah.
imposter syndrome, like you said, like that's real. That definitely
Yeah.
as you're building something and you're looking at outwardly and you're like, well, it doesn't really matter what the hell they're doing,
Right.
like stick to you.
Absolutely. And especially, I mean, I don't think pretty much everyone I work with and a lot of just guys in general in my life, like friends, husbands, like they started listening to some of the empath stuff that I talk about. And then I'll like have like guys like in, at parties in the corner be like, I'm an empath. I didn't realize it until now. And I'm like, yeah, of course, like everyone's energy sensitive.
Yeah.
And like learning about that side of yourself and understanding like that's a part of all of us, and learning how to honor that is one of our superpowers, like
Oh yeah.
figuring out how that ticks within you, and then how you can use that in your business, because that's where all the originality and stuff comes from, like the intuitive side.
It really is. And that's where it's like what you call them, the hits, right? It's like you have
Mm-hmm.
your intuition, you're tapped in, and then you can actually open up and get those downloads, those hits, whatever they are. And hopefully you're writing them down, or something,
Yeah.
capturing them enough to then have action or create and express those things.
Right, and like and the thing that really annoys people with intuition is like you can't force it. I really bother people that I work with because sometimes it will take 2 years for a hit to come through. Like that's genuinely authentic, and I'm like, go, like, now I get it, but you can't force energy. Like your consciousness needs to be at a certain space. Like the consciousness of your business needs to be at a certain space in order for certain insights and intuitive hits to come through. Not all the time. I'm not saying everything's going to take 2 years. Sometimes it takes 2 minutes, but like we just don't know. And the problem that we try to solve is like by forcing it, but you can't force energy.
How do you know if it's like a hit or if that was just like a reflection of a hit or something that, it's like when that's the thing that comes down?
I think that's something that you have to play with and explore, but for me it's like I've gone to another land and all of a sudden I'm back and I'm like, oh my god. And
Oh,
I actually feel like for me, values play a role in intuition. This is something that I talk about with clients. So one of my values is simplicity. So when something comes through to me and it feels so simple that it was like so obvious that I should have seen it like for 2 years, for me, that's how I know that was like a hit that just came through, because my mind would want to complicate it. And the other thing is, people are receiving a lot more intuitive hits than they realize, but what happens is they immediately let the mind pounce on that
yeah.
intuitive hit, and then kind of smother it and question it and doubt it and all of the things. So if you feel like, okay, this could be like a thing, like, can you just give it space to breathe without immediately trying to bring it into the 3D by like putting it into plans or building the sales page or like whatever? Just like give it a beat, like give it 24 hours to just kind of marinate before you immediately like start trying to do something with it.
Yeah, that's good, and that's a lesson for myself too. Because my fear is sometimes like, it's gonna go away. I'm gonna forget whatever brilliance that I thought
Right.
that was.
Well, and part of intuition is discernment. So you'll see this with like a lot of online entrepreneurs, and I used to do this early in my career. Like you get this insight, and then it's like instantly like, I'm selling this program, and that's gonna be fantastic.
Yeah,
And then you just like never hear from the person again about this thing, because they didn't use the side of intuition that's discernment of like, is this the right timing? Is this the right space? Is this the right spot? And that is a part of intuition as well.
yeah, that makes sense. It's definitely. I mean, you're not gonna forget something that's brilliant that came down, especially a moment like that. If you enter another realm or whatever it may be.
And if you do, you could just ask, like, could you, all right, universe, whatever can you please remind me of what that is? Because once it's in your consciousness, it's in your consciousness. So whether you remember in a dream or, right as you're falling asleep, that can happen sometimes too when we
Yeah.
give ourselves space. Things can come through. So if you want to just open your notes app on your phone in the middle of the night, I do that a lot.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's such a mess, but it's like, hey, at least
Yeah.
they're there. I know where they're at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How are there ways that you've enhanced your, I guess, well, I'll just say like, because like I noticed, and I carve out like 10 minutes a day and make sure I'm like in SDRs and awesome, yoga nidra, that kind
Oh, I
of,
love that.
oh yeah, it's like an awesome reset of your nervous system. And I notice when I lay down, especially, and maybe not within SDR, but like if I just lay down for like 10 minutes and just kind of close my eyes or just chill there, I don't know, my brain works differently, or maybe that turns off in a way and it opens up the intuition part. But I feel like for me, that's where I get more of that intuition or those potential hits coming down. And I don't know what it is, being open, being like relaxed, but like, I don't know what your thoughts are on that technique, but it's like, are there other techniques that can kind of like heighten your intuition?
Yeah, 100%. I haven't seen your human design. This is one way that I do like using human design. Like you probably have open centers around your head area because a lot of people who have that, it helps them to lay down and actually like meditate or just create the space. Whereas other people, it might be like Dan, who we talked about. It's like his is like walking. That's when things come through for him. And so there is endless ways, and it's like you have self-awareness. So you're like, okay, when I lay down here, this is when it comes through. So like I'm a channel. So if I want to channel, then I'm sitting up. If I want to just receive intuitive hits, it'd be a less active process. Then I'm also laying down because I have a lot of open centers in my head too. So I like going to whatever you want to call them, like other intuitives, or I mean, that can get a little dicey because, you know, like any industry, there's some legit and some non-legit. But
Oh yes, I've
I
heard.
think like any resource that can help you understand yourself better. So I do use human design with clients because it is something tangible that the mind can see. And it's like, okay, these are your intuitive gates. And so this might be ways that you receive information. That's one thing. And that's free. You can get your human design chart and you can Google stuff and what the gates mean and all that. Or you could do a session with somebody. Working with other, you know, mediums, intuitives, people who will help you identify practices and ways. Like, I think that that's helpful. And then just like being your own observer, like when these big insights come through or the hits come through, like what led up to that? What were you doing or not doing? You know, so for example, I know that when I'm getting a lot of stuff at 3 a.m. that I haven't carved out enough space because Spirit's like waking me up at 3 a.m. to tell me something. It means, okay, I've been a little bit slipping with my spiritual practices and not giving it the space that it needs. So therefore, Spirit's like, hi, you can do office hours. This is something my mentor, Carissa, taught me with like, so I connect with Spirit a lot. I'm not saying that everyone out there needs to, but even if you just want to connect with your intuition, you can be like Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 10. Those are my office hours. So if you could please
I like
give
it.
me the,
Yeah.
give me the goods. Like that's
Yeah.
fine. Spirit will like accommodate, you know.
You're time blocking for spirit. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're creating space literally. And
Yeah, literally. So if that's what works for you of being structured about it, then do it, you know.
I think, and it's like however you want to frame it, you know, for those listening, you know, however it connects with you. I mean, literally, it's time blocking time for yourself and allowing whatever to come in. And yeah, I think it's a perfect way to at least get in that habit of getting the intuition more tapped in too, because yeah, it could just be your resting time too. You
It
know?
could totally be like sometimes, I mean, we all know when we like try to meditate and then we wake up an hour later, it's like, oops, I guess I really needed a
Oh yeah,
nap, and not to be upset with yourself about that, but be like, that's what I needed for today. And also, especially with people that I'm working with that are developing their intuition, it's like, you know, if you need rest, like Spirit's not going to bug you or like take your rest. So don't expect that every time, if you want to time block dates with Spirit, like just
that's pretty
dates with
fun.
your intuition,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that during that time you're going to be flooded with all sorts of hits. Like you could go through a dry spell for a couple weeks and then boom, all of a sudden it's coming through. So like don't have expectation, but be in the energy of wonder. Wonder is what moves everything with a higher realm. So be in a space of wonder. Like I wonder if this practice is helpful, you know, for me. I wonder what's going to happen in this little period that I've blocked off to just connect with myself here. Like just
That's cool.
not being in expectation of it, but being in wonder of it.
I like that. Yeah. And it's being open, right?
Yeah.
Being wonder is open, curious to whatever's going to show up. So, and that's the whole
Yeah.
point of this anyway. It's like we're controlling enough with our
Yeah.
brains and with our humanness. So it's like just chill out. And like the net, it's like you're going to feel good. You're going to relax anyway, no matter what, even if you don't get that brilliant hit that you're so seeking. It's like
Yes,
it'll come.
exactly.
Just chill out.
Exactly. Like, can you just like enjoy the space? And like the bonus is something cool is going to come through more often than not.
Yeah.
But when you're like have the energy of forcing it or demanding it, it's like you're messing up the energy with which to receive it.
And you're out of balance, right? You're
Yeah.
too masculine energy at that point. And
Right.
yeah, it ain't gonna feel good. So yeah, I guess like Molly, my takeaway is
pretty much that is like figuring out how to, it's not figuring out, it's just like just doing it, just carving out time for ourselves to find that intuition, but find ourselves. And at the end of the day, it's really just, it's letting go of the doing and the forcing of a lot of things. Because I feel like all of us can connect in some way, however we want to look at our lives, how that shows up. Like, okay,
Absolutely.
cool. Just focus there. Like, you're going to feel better. And you're probably going to think, come up with some brilliant hits in the process too. So.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, Molly, tell me about a little bit about what you got going on in terms of like who you support. And I know it's primarily women, so there's women. I know there's women listening, so I don't know. Maybe you want to speak to them, but yeah, let me know like next steps. Anyone can go further with you.
Sure. Yeah, I primarily work with women, or like I would say, woo-minded men.
Witches like Dan.
Yeah, witches, or I guess they're wizards. I had one gentleman correct me and say, "I'm a wizard, not a witch." I was like, I got it. You're right. Actually, apologies for calling you men witches. So I work with wizards and witches. No, I'm just kidding. A lot of what I do is help people with clarity. So if you're feeling blocked with something in your business, or things just have come to like a halt with something that was working before, those are kind of like my favorite things to work with. So I have a few different offers. Like I have group programs, I have one-on-one stuff. So it just kind of depends on what people are seeking, but I absolutely love it, because it's like you, Joe, have a frequency, your business has a frequency, and once we tap into what that frequency is, we can create so much flow. It gets so easy, it gets so fun. And
there you go.
That's
why it's named this podcast, Hustle and Flowchart. So it's like it's all meant to be for everybody here. How can folks go reach out and explore a little bit of these programs that you get?
Sure. So my website is mollyhamill.com, Hamill. That's my Instagram too. So either of those. And then my podcast is Her Unrealistic Ways. And it is a little more feminine based, but the men can listen too, because really we're all on a journey right now of like coming into balance with like healthy masculine and empowering the feminine, because we've been in a space of like imbalanced masculine. So whether we are man, woman, or whatever, we're all on this path right now of balancing those energies within ourselves. So.
Cool, Molly. Yeah, and definitely go listen to it. And then the episode again I listened to was Unlocking Business Chakra Magic. And so if that resonated, go deeper on that episode. It's a good one. Cool. And you men can listen to. It's all good.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, Molly. Appreciate you. And go rock out on that guitar when you're all done.
You don't want to hear that?
Thank you.
All right. That's what I got for you today. And remember, it's not all about living to work. It's all about working to live, if you need to do the work. But, work can be fun, and it should be fueling for your life. So, if you enjoyed what you just heard, if you got some nuggets of wisdom that you want to share, or you're just noodling on right now, please go tell others. The way that people find this show and how you can help others get their aha moments is through word of mouth. So if it is telling your friend, telling your family, sending an email to your list, writing a review, or whatever it might be, everything helps. So thank you so much for listening to the Hustle and Flowchart podcast, and I will see you next time.